right, thank you. And I had the incredible foresight to forget the issue at home that I was going to be reading from, so I'm going to be reading from my phone instead. This story is a square of flesh, a cube of steel, which was printed in the September-October 2019 issue of Analog. And this is a story about isolation, self-determination, and giant queer ladies. None of it would have been beautiful if it lasted forever. Felicity Chaturvedi tightened her grip around Eureka's smallest finger and felt at peace next to her girlfriend, sheltered from the world. Below them, the bay shone in the moon La Mancha's half-bright daylight, and the forest ran unbroken to the shore. "I don't want to rush you," Felicity said, "but much longer and you'll miss the eclipse." "Just finishing it up now," Eureka said. She wasn't just low-gravity tall, but gigantic, engineered to fit into a world that pulled only lightly on her bones, and her handheld screen was correspondingly large. She made a flourish with her stylus and beamed the finished drawing to Eureka's own screen. "There, take a look at that." At first it was like seeing a stranger with a face the same shape as a friend's, but after a moment the contours of chin and cheek and nose arranged themselves into stark familiarity. The skin was the right shade of brown, the eyes properly green. It was her and not her. It was what she might look like, polished, smoothed down, rather than being left incomplete. It was a face she might have seen in the mirror if any of a galaxy's worth of options for gender affirmation had been available to her, if there had been any justice in the world. "When you look at me," Felicity said, "is this what you see?" "When I look at you, I see what the light lets me see," Eureka said. She motioned to the sun, already shaved into a thinning crescent as the gas giant Quixote slipped between it and La Mancha like a jealous sibling who wanted all the attention. "Isn't that enough?" The eclipse was unlike anything on Mars. She remembered her mother, eager and bright, stuffing her into a suit and calling her a name she'd realized was sour poison so that they could watch tiny Phobos glide across the sun. Felicity hadn't found anything impressive about it. Eclipses on Mars were the half-finished distractions of a half-finished world. The sun went from a crescent to a sliver, and from a sliver to nothing. Night swept across La Mancha like a scythe, but whatever Felicity saw wasn't what Eureka was seeing. It couldn't be, with eyes that collected so much more light. It was another little truth that left her empty in the middle, that between their sight and size and so much else, there were things they couldn't share. Wasn't a relationship supposed to be about sharing? "It must be so much more beautiful for you," Felicity said. "I wish I could understand it." "Oh, it's easier than you think," Eureka said. "It takes time and work to become more than we are. Patience." Felicity sighed and looked up into the constellation-dappled sky as a new star flared into being, just for an instant. A ship had come through the warp point. She squinted at the patch of sky where it had presented, traced the stars, and felt a chill. It had erupted among the stars of the peregrine, the traveler, the foreigner, the unwilling wanderer. "There," Felicity said, "that's a bad omen." "There's nothing to worry about," Eureka said. "I'm here. I've got you." They stayed until the sun emerged from the far side of Quixote and drowned the world in visible light, and only then did Felicity check her screen. With Eureka's drawing minimized, it reflected back to her face that looked too much like a man's face, a mask that had been stapled to her skull, a crumbling facade she wasn't allowed to replace and should never have been her problem at all. A message was waiting for her. It was the only thing it could ever have been. How am I doing your time? "I can barely imagine it after so long," said Felicity's mother. "Yesterday the Martian Federation's an ambassador to La Mancha, and today just the Martian. Home. Such a simple word, but so heavy with meaning, especially when it was a lie." "I can't," Felicity said. She cast her gaze out the window of a house that had never felt all that home-like and was now only hers as a courtesy. Below were the multicolored roofs of Bay Serene, capital and largest city of La Mancha, huddled together like birds in a storm. "I don't really want to either." "You won't have to worry about a thing," her mother said. She filled a table with trinkets and breakables, scanning them so she could have them remade on Mars. "The ship's going through a maintenance check and won't be able to leave for some time yet. Plenty of time for you to make your adjustments and say your goodbyes. For you, maybe, Felicity said. As ambassador, her mother had lived in a fragile, evanescent world where words were weapons. No wonder she hadn't made connections. And if it hadn't needed maintenance, you'd have uprooted me like a weed? Would you? Felicity, please, her mother said. You're still young. You have so many opportunities ahead of you. But this is a small world, and there are big opportunities back home for both of us. Felicity imagined herself pushing the table over and scattering everything to the wind. She could hear the shatters and clatters loudly enough that it was just as good as doing it for real. Sure, she was young, not quite 10 in Martian or Lamantian years, a bit over 17 to an Earther, but that didn't mean she was foolish. La Mancha might have been cold, but it wasn't a desert. I have a life here, Felicity said, filling her voice with acid until it spilled. I have friends here. I told you about the school I applied for. They have an incredible set of programs. I want to study here. Just because you're here now, you don't have to act like it'll be forever, her mother said. You're comparing a world of 50,000 people to a system filled with billions. Felicity could read the unspoken words behind her mother's smile. You're afraid. You think you're not good enough. You'd rather deal with as little competition as possible. They were the same things she told herself in the dark hours during La Mancha's long, long nights. She had no trouble believing them. Besides, they're doing great things with medical science back home, her mother said. Maybe they've found a solution. Felicity froze like a waterfall in winter. A solution. Even before she'd left Mars, she'd known the body she'd been born into wasn't the one she was meant to have. Bad luck on a genetic lottery. All the standard treatments, so the doctors said, were too dangerous for her to pursue. Superficial work had never satisfied her. Nearly 10 long years, and she'd never truly seen herself in a mirror. Have they? Felicity couldn't let herself be swept up by might-be-sos. Or is that just hope? It's whatever you want it to be, her mother said. I'm sorry that you're having trouble, but the truth is that this isn't our world. It's time to go home. Felicity could picture it well enough. Red dust, butterscotch skies, dirty domes, pumps full of endlessly recycled air that smelled like sweat and farts. No cool breezes, no soft grasses beneath her bare feet, not a hint of life. Quixotic outposts on a dead world and nothing more. If the entire world around her was dead, how could she ever feel alive?
Thank you so much, Phoebe.